Hello, it's Leslie here. Today I wanted to talk about how I learned Spanish. Spanish is the second language I learned as an adult, and I started to learn Spanish in 2005. So originally I wasn't actually that interested in learning Spanish, but I met my partner who was Spanish, and I had a lot of curiosity about what she was saying. So I ended up moving to Spain in the Canary Islands and staying there for 8 years. So I picked up Spanish. First, I started with a program called Behind the Wheel Spanish, which was on CD, I think, at the time. Because at this time there was no YouTube, it was before the YouTube era, it was before smartphones, before even the Google Translate app, I think. So originally I had one of those digital translators that you can buy. So, yeah, I started with Behind the Wheel Spanish, and that's an 8 hour course. I did that, and I think I even did Behind the Wheel Spanish 2 from memory. And I spent a lot of time in the kitchen, believe it or not, because in Spanish culture the kitchen is a big part of the family life. And I'd speak to my partner's auntie about things about food and cooking, and it's a good way to learn, I thought, because it was like they speak in a very simple way, like um, I'm adding this and I'm adding that. And I started watching cooking shows. In particular, the main cooking show was Carlos Arguiñano. During the day, I'd watch Carlos Arguiñano. He came on every day, and yeah, that's what I'm saying. He'd say, "We are adding the salt," or "We're adding the water," and we'd always be using uh, the same verb conjugations. We, like, what is that? First person plural. So I picked it up pretty quickly. After 3 months or so, I started, getting the hang of it. And then after about maybe 3 years, I was getting okay. So I also watched some television, like Aida and La Que Sea Vecina, I think it's called. Ada is quite a funny show. I recommend Ada, although it's not like widescreen. It's only the old 4:3 format, but it's still worth watching. I think it's very funny. Ada was the most popular series on television at the time, and I went for 10 seasons. So I watched, I think, 8 or 9 seasons of that. So that was one of the main things I used to watch. And also a bit of news. And of course, I'd speak with her family and some clients that I had in Spain, and the accountant and things like that. So that's kind of how I learned. And also, there was a child growing up, so I overheard how they teach, or how they taught the child, or how they pick it up, or how they picked it up. For example, um, they'd correct the kid when they made mistakes. So I'd pick up on the corrections too sometimes. Uh, anyway, so that's pretty much how I learned. I don't practice Spanish that much anymore. I've forgotten surprisingly little. There was a big gap where I didn't um, watch any Spanish at all. Probably about 5 years before I could handle it again, because I had a divorce and everything, and it reminded me of that. So I didn't do Spanish for 5 years, but surprisingly, I haven't lost that much ability to understand anything. So that's good. I kind of put that language though at the lowest of my priorities, because I spent the most amount of time on it, probably 8 years. I've moved on since then, and I'm learning other languages. I'm mainly focused on Russian and Italian at the moment. So I just wanted to make this quick video. How I learnt Spanish. Yeah, it was with Behind the Wheel Spanish. I think I also did some Pimsleur at the time. And I also bought some books because YouTube wasn't a thing then. It just wasn't around. There was no YouTube. So I bought quite a few books. Like I bought Spanish for Dummies Intermediate. I bought a few grammar books. So at that time I actually used books to study the most. So I'd sit there in the evening and look at the books for half an hour every day, for a while anyway, and look at some of the grammar. And yeah, just watching television was how I found a good way. In those days, there was no subtitles at all, so it was kind of hard to understand what they were saying, especially the news. The nightly news was the hardest for me because it might have been a bit political or a bit financial, so that was a bit harder without subtitles. But I think it trained my ear to learn it. Anyway, I'm going to stop this now because I think my recording is going to crash, so I'm going to stop. Thanks for watching. Bye.